where it all began, and where it will begin again. Well, as long as the Pokemon train is still a-rolling, we may as well take it to its next stop. Gym leaders. I talked about these special trainers with this dingus back when I was just starting out. They're meant to test your progress by taking you on with teams of a given type and give you badges when you beat them. And like everything else in video games, there are gym leaders that I love, and then there are those that I don't remember quite as fondly. Now, this list is a bit shorter since I've had quite a few things going on lately, so I'm limiting it to one gym leader for each generation. And I really don't hate these gym leaders, I just don't like them all that much. Okay, now I'm just stalling. It's game time! One of the things I like is when gym leaders have personality. Apart from their teams, it's what makes me remember them. Gen 3, for instance, with jolly old Watson, Flannery, who's trying her hardest, your character's father, and you've got a lineup that makes Winona feel a bit out of place. The first of a running pattern on this list, Winona has nothing about her to make her stand out, i.e., this chick is boring. She just prattles on about beauty and grace and whatnot, and there's nothing interesting about her, at all. Her team is also very unremarkable, with the exception being her Altaria, which happens to be packing Earthquake. To her credit, her flying types do have some diversity to them, but this leads to another issue. At this point in the game, the flying type is all too common, and you'll more than likely have one of the three counters to it, those being Rock, Electric, and Ice. Apart from her Swellow, each of her Pokemon can offset at least one of the type's weaknesses. Pelipper for Ice, Skarmory for Rock and Ice, and Altaria for Electric. However, by offsetting one weakness, two of these Pokemon actually have another made twice as powerful, while lacking the type coverage in her move pool to compensate. And you know what the funny thing is? You can actually ignore her in the original games until you reach the Pokemon League. What, were they trying to make her easier to ignore? What made the gym leaders of Gen 5 stand out compared to the rest of the pack was how many of them got involved in the game outside of the standard roles. Clay stood up to Team Plasma, Elesa helped resolve an issue between Bianca and her father, etc. However, compared to the rest of Gen 5 leaders, Marlin from Black and White 2 was just there. He's not even at his post when you reach the gym for the first time. He's just shirking his duties and being the stereotypical surfer dude. He's also completely oblivious to what Team Plasma's been doing, to the point where he's asking whether or not they're bad people. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be giving any humanitarian awards to pirates who freeze a city solid. And while I won't fault Marlin for using Water-type Pokemon, after all, Wallace did the same thing in Gen 3 and he's one of my favorites, but Marlin's team of Caracosta, Wailord, and Jellicent doesn't do much to cover any of the type's weaknesses, making the fight relatively easy for this point in the game. And this was the point where the last gym leaders started carrying only 3 Pokemon, which I felt made things easier than they should be. Like I've said before in a previous video, personality and challenge are two things I appreciate in a gym leader. Wallace has these, Marlin does not. He should have been earlier in the game, to be honest. Let Drayden be the final gym leader. You know, like last time. Oh my god, all the bad memories are coming back! Whitney is infamous among Gen 2's gym leaders because of the jump in difficulty from the first two, and for me, she caught me off guard so badly. Cyndaquil was my starter in Gen 2, and the first 2 leaders were no problem. But Whitney? Yeesh, I was completely unprepared. Her Clefairy wasn't much trouble, although it was a bit of a troll with Encore, Mimic, and Metronome. But that's not the issue. The issue is this freaking Miltank! This powerhouse packs Attract, which spells trouble given the male slanting gender ratio of the starters and the fact that Miltank is always female, Milk Drink for self-healing, which is always an annoyance, and Stomp, which can make you flinch. This was also my first exposure to the move Rollout, a move that gets stronger with consecutive hits. Oh, and it's a rock type, meaning it was super effective against my Quilava. As you can imagine, this cow is a serious pain.
Oh, come on, QG. Whitney's Miltank isn't that bad.
TP, since when did this become a commentary?
When you over-exaggerate Whitney's difficulty, there are plenty of ways around that Miltank. Just focus on defense, statuses, or evasion and you're good.
Sure, I know that now, and if I were to go back and face her today, I'd probably have little trouble with her. But back then, when I was all, I have a plan, attack, and with Quilava no less, I had no idea what to expect. This is just the bad memories I had with the first time I faced her. Besides, you can't excuse her throwing a temper tantrum when she loses. You're a gym leader, girl. If you can't show the level of professionalism and humility that the position demands, then no you.
BRB, gonna copyright no you and have everyone hate me.
For all the technical issues with Gen 1 and how poorly it's aged, it had a really solid lineup of gym leaders. I mean, we had the iconic Brock and Misty, a ninja, a hot-headed quizmaster, the leader of Team Freaking Rocket, and a flower arranger. Okay. When compared to the rest of Gen 1's lineup, Erica is very unremarkable, which is strange considering her appreciation for the beauty of nature. She doesn't have anything about her personality that stands out in any way, and for that matter, neither does her team. In Red, Blue, and the remakes, it's a Victory Bell, a Tangela, and a Vileplume. Yellow replaces the evolved Pokemon with their middle forms while raising their level. But here's the problem. By the time you reach her, you'll most likely have at least one counter for her entire team. You have a Fire type? You're good. You have a Flying type? You're golden. Ice type move? No problemo. Psychic type? That's 2 out of 3. Bug? Well, the Bug-type moves in Gen 1 kinda sucked, but you get the idea. Even in her Encore in Gen 2, the lack of type coverage in her team doesn't do much for her. The addition of Jumpluff and Blossom did nothing to cover her team's weaknesses. Making matters worse is the fact that 3 of her Pokemon know Sunny Day. While it does feed into the Chlorophyll ability to boost their speed, only Blossom has Solar Beam to further take advantage of the sun. That's not even saying anything of the fact that her own Sunny Day can be used against her if you have Fire-type moves. One of the grass type's primary weaknesses. It's one thing to fall short as a gym leader, but when you're given a second chance and you still blow it, you ain't gonna make that smell nice. It's one thing to be a difficulty spike, but when you're a difficulty spike, have a big ego, and are still unmemorable, that's a sign that you seriously fail. Fantina can be either the 3rd or 5th gym leader you face in Sinnoh, depending on which version you're playing. But regardless of when you face her, the major problems she has are still the same. She's cocky, arrogant, and yet, in spite of her outlandish appearance, she's still completely forgettable. Her team depends on which version you play. In Diamond and Pearl, she leads off with a Drifblim that can raise its stats, make you flinch, and raise its evasion, making it difficult to hit. She follows up with a Gengar with Poison Jab, the PP draining Spite, and the dreaded Confuse Ray. In Platinum, she starts with a bulky Duskull, which has moves like Will-O-Wisp and Shadow Sneak, and follows with a Haunter who's fast and annoying with Confuse Ray, Hypnosis, and Sucker Punch. And in all versions, her anchor is this Miss Magus, and it's Pack and Heat. It has Shadow Ball for stab power, Magical Leaf and Psybeam for type coverage, and once again, that goddamn Confuse Ray. Depending on your plan, this can be either relatively easy or your worst nightmare. Oh, and she's a coordinator as well, so you can look forward to facing off against her and her gigantic ego in the super contests. Yay! And in keeping with the 1 per generation constraint, I'm not going to post dishonorable mentions this time. Let's just get to number 1. Real talk, I feel that most of the gym leaders in Gen 6 were just extremely unremarkable. With the exception of Clement and Wolfric, they were either forgettable or when they were memorable, it wasn't for very long. And the worst of them in Kalos, and in fact among gym leaders in general, would have to be Olympia. I barely even remember this lady. She has nothing about her that makes her interesting or memorable in the slightest. I mean, what does she have going for her? Well, she has an interesting design, and her gym is pretty cool. And that's pretty much it. She's all like, personality? I don't need one, I'm a psychic. The only thing even remotely interesting about her character is that she speaks in haiku. Okay. So what's her team like? Well, she does have a Sigilif and a Slowking, both good picks for this point in the game. And what's her ace Pokemon? A freaking Meowstic. Really, Olympia? After 2 useful Psychic Pokemon, you ended off with a Pokemon that has a lower base stat total than both of them? Couldn't you have at least brought a Malamar and have Slowking be your anchor? And you just fought a Meowstic in your most recent battle with your rival not too long ago. So by now, Olympia's Meowstic poses little threat and goes down without much of a fight. And by the time it's all over, you'll probably forget about her and her fight. Heaven knows I did. I'm the Quarter Guy, and the more I think about it, the more Gen 6 is starting to feel like an afterthought. I mean, just 2 main series games, the Hoenn remakes, and that's it? Kinda feels like getting shortchanged. That being said, I can't wait to hear more about Sun and Moon. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of new Pokémon we'll see, what new mechanics the new games will bring to the table, and who knows? Maybe we'll finally get that Dark-type gym leader. Man, it's about time I remade this list. A couple years ago, people actually thought this thing was good. Well, my opinions have changed a bit since 2012, both on that old relic and the topic I covered in the first place. Wow, they're really pushing the limits with these finishers. Did somebody call for overkill? Next time, Top 10 Astral Heats Extend! It's game time! Yo! Thanks for watching this. Hopefully I can get back to full top 10 starting soon, along with my other usual fare. You know, League of LoL, live streams. I'm even hoping to revive Clash of Q and the Q review this year. Anyways, you all know the drill by now. Annotations for more stuff, feedback in the comments, social media, Patreon, whatever. Oh, and shout out to Master TP10 for taking the time to show up. Thanks, and until next time, this is the Quarter Guy, signing out. And while I won't fart...